So when I was starting out as a designer, everybody was saying different things on how to make more money as a web designer. So in this video, we're gonna go over 6 different tips that personally helped me and will help you as well on creating more money and more of an income for myself as a web designer. So let's get into it. Now, there's a lot of different types of web designers out there. There's a lot of different types of niches and skills and things that you can learn. So the first tip is gonna be the most important one, which is gonna be improve and expand your skill set. Now, when you're up against a lot of designers, and that's basically what this is, it's just a competition with a lot of other designers, because whenever you're talking to a client, he or she is always going to be talking to other designers, vetting other people and seeing who is going to be the best match. So the best thing that you can do is, number one, improve your skills, and that might be your soft skills, so like communication with them, improving how you present yourself, what your branding looks like, and also your hard skills. So understanding that your web design can probably be improved with some small courses, maybe improving your typography skills, your color skills, things like that. And then there's also learning new software. So it's going to be maybe the new one that came out is Framer or Webflow or Figma update, whatever it's going to be. That is important to know. It's always important to be on top of your game with these things because everybody else is. So it's always important that you stay within the competition so that you can make more money as a designer. Number 2 is going to be a critical one. So money on the table is a massive problem for designers. We are creative people, and to a lot of us, business and selling might not come super natural. So one of the things that you need to keep in mind is going to be upselling and making sure that you're selling all the possible services that you can sell to them. So when a client comes to you and says, I need a new web design, now that might be true, but it might also be true that they might need new typography, new color schemes, new imagery, new copy, things like that. And if you're bulking it all into one project, it's important to understand that a lot of clients might not see that as individual items, because a lot of clients aren't too familiar with the process of web design and might not know that they're different things, or maybe even they might even bulk you into logo design and branding all under the same subject. So it's important to be able to tell them that, look, we have branding on one side, we've got copy, and we've got design, imagery, things like that. So it's important to be able to delineate those 2 or those 3 options. Now, I use something called Instaprice, and I think that it's a great tool for web designers, beginners, experts, pretty much anybody to understand how you can upsell your clients. So this is the tool right here. So if I type in web design, maybe as 2 words instead of 1. So if I do website redesign and I expand here, we can see that we've got all of these different things that we can start to charge for. So for example, I'm going to add all of these, and we can see that they all have different prices attached to them. So conduct kickoff calls, audit the website, take a look at the SEO, take a look at the CRM, take a look at the competitors, the sitemaps, the mockups, the design wireframe. So all of these different things are separated by themselves. And when you start to add everything up, now this isn't necessarily value-based pricing, but this is an easier step to take than to jump directly to value-based pricing, especially if you are just starting out, if you're a beginner. It's easier to say, okay, look, we're going to separate everything and we're going to go by day, maybe by hour if you want to, if you really need to. It's easier to do it this way than to jump into the deep end with your client and say how much you're going to make off their project, then I'm going to charge you a certain percent off of that. This is a lot easier and a lot more digestible for people just getting started. So I do recommend that you take a look at this instaprice.app site. Link is going to be in the description, of course. So that's definitely important. But it's not as important as understanding that you need to work efficiently when you're creating these projects. Now, if you're juggling multiple different projects and you're not focusing 100% of your time, or you're not outsourcing correctly, then these projects can pile on top of another. And if you have created a fixed price project, so for example, I'm creating a site for 10K and it's going to take me 3-4 weeks, great. But if in those 3 to 4 weeks, I am not doing the work that I'm supposed to be doing and it ends up extending to maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks, that cuts deep into my daily rate, or the money that I get to take home in the end, because it's costing me in the longer run to run this project than it did in the beginning when we first set out this goal. And scope creep is a massive thing. So you need to understand exactly how fast you work when you're creating a site, when you're designing, when you're building in Webflow, copywriting, all of that. Now it's a bit easier nowadays with ChatGPT and these AI tools, but being efficient with your workflow is going to be one of the most important things that's going to help you charge more money as a designer. Now, these last 3 tips are great, but none of them are going to be as crucial as simply raising your rates. Now, this is something that's super difficult when you're first starting out. You don't really understand how to do it and what not to do, what to do. So the technique that I used in the beginning was simply increasing my rates every single project until somebody said no. So this is the best way that you're going to realize where your skill set actually lies and how good you are at selling. Now, the reason behind this is if you keep raising your rates, and someone eventually says no, you're going to understand that maybe my work isn't good enough for $10,000 a page or a site or whatever the metric that you want to use is. Now, keep in mind that when you do try to do this, try to understand what your market is that you're trying to do this in. So for example, if you do this in Upwork or Fiverr or something like that, it's going to be harder to do because people there are very price sensitive. So if you are working with personal people, maybe at a startup, maybe at a co-work, something like that, then it's easier to start to double your rates and start to understand the value that you might bring these different clients. Number 5, and probably one of the most important ones as well, is going to be to build long-term relationships. Now, it's a lot easier to make money off of one client for a long term than to just try to get 30K projects coming in every single week. That's much harder to do unless you're used to getting that kind of volume. So what I recommend is to really create a relationship with individual clients, and you'll have work for the very long term. We're working with a client right now that we started working with 2, 3, 4 years ago, just because now they need a different page design. Now they need a different page built. So all these different things can start to add up. The more clients you have, the more years that you're in this business. Having a good relationship with your clients is super critical because you never know who they might recommend you to or what kind of project that relationship might lead you into. Now, the last one is one that I can't speak to too much, but I know that it works every single time, and it's going to be specializing in a very specific niche or industry. Now, the reason being for this is because when you're selling to everybody, you're essentially selling to no one. So when you become the go-to guy for a specific niche, so for example, that guy to create websites for dentists in a specific city, every single dentist is going to hear about you and they're going to want your website. So it's easy to be able to charge more money for that specific, very niche, very conversion ready site, rather than if you're just saying, okay, I'm going to make a site maybe for a startup, maybe for a farm, maybe for a dentist. You don't have a niche, so it's hard to be very concrete with your conversions and with your results. So if you do focus on a niche, it's important to pick one that you do know that makes a lot of money. Maybe talk to people beforehand before diving into that niche, because if you pick the wrong niche, then it might be not the best idea. So make sure that you go ahead, do your research before diving headfirst, and make sure that you pick the right one. So in summary, we've got 6 different tips here. It's going to be expand your skill set, offer additional services, take a look at your workflow, understand where you might not be as efficient as you should be, increase your rates, build long-term relationships, and finally specialize. So with these 6 different tips or skill sets, if you guys take a year out to just develop all of these and focus on creating this kind of value for your clients, I guarantee that you're going to be making more money and be able to charge because your value is just simply going to be higher. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.